Welcome to another episode of Muscle Matters. I'm here with the awesome, handsome, veiny. I'm kind of upset. I need to shave my legs. But the veins are just all out on your legs right now. Just making me a
leg day today.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
okay,
that's the secret.
Oh, okay. I got started.
I told you to do upper body, but
wrong day to wear my hoochie daddy shorts. Today we're going to be doing an interview with Frap. So we're going to be going over contest preparation. If you don't know, Frap's an awesome contest prep coach. So we're going to go some of the ins and outs, the ABCs, and stick around. Hey, so you didn't get a chance to watch that. I thought that was really interesting with the Joe Weider, and that
I will go back and watch it because you've intrigued me. So
yeah.
I saw the text. I didn't click on the view.
Oh man, because I saw it on YouTube and I was like, all right, Robbie's pretty interesting, and like he was one, and they talked about his body, and I was like, everybody knew that wasn't Joe's body.
Yeah,
but to know that was Robbie's body was like, oh my goodness. It was a real interesting interview with Robbie Robinson on it's not Generation Iron. What is that? But it's on YouTube.
But yeah, they basically take Joe Weider's head and they put it on Robbie's bust, and so they make Joe Weider look like this awesome bodybuilder. Anyway, he's plastered all over anything in the IFBB.
You know, Robbie doesn't get $1 for that.
Didn't work a contract out.
But it was different back then.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So that's too big of a rabbit hole. We'll save that for another day. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk contest prep with Frap. So let's start at the top. Frap, what led you to want to prepare athletes?
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's a great question. And one, I'll admit, I was, and now that I'm, I guess, more experienced, I will say I was young and naive, which was good and bad at the same time, right? You don't know what you don't know. But basically, I'd been working out for, honestly, only about 3 years. But I really just fell in love with it. And I was reading constantly everything, right? Whether it came to training, start with supplements, right? Because I was like the cool, maybe it's a quick way to get somewhere. But then you realize, okay, well, after supplements, I needed nutrition is really the paramount, aspect of it. After that, you go to training. So anyway, you start reading, you start learning, and you're like, oh yeah, this works for me. And then say, hey, let me, buddies start to ask you, hey, what do you do for this body part or XYZ? And so you start helping them, and they start seeing results. And I think you can kind of quickly get, I don't want to say a big head, but you kind of get like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I can do this for other people. I've done this for myself. I'm starting to do it for myself. But anyway, that was kind of the inception of it. But basically, long story short, is I had coached 2 females for one of the natural shows we had here, and they both did really well. I won't go into the natural shows, but they both did really well, first and second place in their classes. And then anyway, the guy I met, Eric Martinez, was really my first, I'd say, big step into the NPC.
Now, a lot of you guys aren't familiar with Eric Martinez. Eric Martinez is awesome physique, 3 shows in a pro. You don't hear that too often. Yeah. He did 3 shows, got his IFBB pro card. Eric, I don't know if you ever watch this, Eric, there's lots of prayers going on. He's pretty jacked up right now.
Yeah, I mean, recovery's been going really well, though. So, I mean, all up and up now. But yeah, he went through a lot of different injuries.
So the natty athlete, let's start with the natty athlete.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that. So you've got your first one.
Yep.
Now, how many diets had you written before you wrote a contest diet? Did you write any lifestyle diets, or did you just jump deep into the water of, hey, I'm just going straight contest?
If I'm just being honest, I went straight to contest prep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
again, naive and
it
just was what it was at the time. I was 21.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah,
I miss magazines. I miss being able to read. I miss being able to learn, because there's so much misinformation out there, and everybody's got a code. About the time you think you get some knowledge, it's use my code to get a product.
Exactly.
So your first 2 girls, how did they ladies? How did they respond to your dieting?
Well, so I'll tell you what, right? I mean, when in my mind back then, contest prep dieting was all about losing body fat. There wasn't a ton of, hey, maintain muscle while you're doing it. I mean, of course, kept my protein up, or their protein up high, but all of it was geared towards just losing fat, getting as lean as possible for stage. So, actually, and what I will say in some of my, I won't say my success, but some of the success I had with clients is definitely.
Say that.
I was like, dude,
we're gonna evolve. We're gonna keep evolving.
So I mean, so basically, with training someone for a natural contest, it is easier because there's a whole aspect of the supplementation and the pharmaceutical usage you don't have to worry about. So you really are just focusing on diet training. That's about it at that time. A little bit of water manipulation at the time. That I think I read off of a bodybuilding.com forum from Lane Norton. that's where I got my first like peak week protocol.
Don't worry, my first diet came out of Joe Weider's magazine.
Yeah, right. We start somewhere, but that's kind of the beginning of it.
Okay, now you got your first two. What did you digest and cause you to progress and realize, okay, this isn't quite it? What caused that progression?
Well, I don't know. So since both of them did the best they could do at that show,
it was kind of a hard progression, realizing.
Yeah, it was almost like, okay, what can I do better? So it was still just hit the books, internet, whatever it was, right? Get to reading more. How can I improve or change different things to maybe get there faster? And then I started thinking more about, okay, well, actually, we need to preserve muscle, right? When you see people on stage, you're like, man, what? I saw this person 6 months ago and they were fairly big, and now they're just very stringy. How can we make that not happen or not have that look on stage?
Okay, so we've got number one. We're going to go your second prep.
Yep.
Now, what information did you change from prep number one to prep number two?
So technically prep number two was one of those girls. I did a secondary bikini show about 2 months later. That prep was very similar, right? I hadn't learned much different. I think if I remember right, because this is now 12 years ago. I think I changed up basically the water manipulation at the end.
Okay.
And I didn't have to push cardio as hard because she was already fairly lean.
Yes.
So those are the biggest differences, right? The prep overall was very similar. So really the difference was going into Eric Martinez's prep. And just a small backstory, Eric had just got done. He was a Cal State wrestler, D1 wrestler, but he had shoulder surgery and he came to me to help grow muscle back. So before he came to me, he was only hitting legs for like the last 2 or 3 months because he was letting his shoulder rehab. So we went through, it was probably a 6-7 month growth phase. He put on, because he responds super well, tons of muscle.
Okay.
So it's kind of where the jumping off point from prep is.
Okay. Now let's look at growth. You know, a lot of people don't understand the growing aspect of dieting. What did you manipulate in Eric's life to stimulate the growing?
Yeah, I mean, so really, and as most clients, Eric came to me, just said, hey, you put the plan together, whatever it is, whether it's, training, supplementation, diet, just give me something and I'll follow it. So he's one of those like athletes that you want. Because he's not going to question.
Wrestlers are the best.
Oh yeah. And they're so used to eating very little.
Nothing.
They will do
walk
whatever.
Around with a spit cup.
Oh yeah. Wear trash bags and go run for 3 miles in the morning. They will do whatever. So they're hard workers, which is actually a huge, it's one of the things you can't teach athletes. And I think I've heard Matt Jensen talk about that. He's like, I'd rather have somebody who basically will slack a little bit on diet, but trains intense. And that's something
we're gonna come back to that. Keep going. We're gonna come back to that.
So with the growth for Eric, it was really just giving him enough calories. And honestly, as a coach, you're monitoring them. So, I'd have check-ins, I want to say every 2 weeks at that point, because it's off season.
It's growing. So
you don't need to have eyes on every week or even more frequent than that. So every couple of weeks, he'd send me email check-ins with pictures, a little questionnaire about his weight, what's going on in his life. And I would just modify the diet from there. So it was a slow increase of calories over the course of 6-7 months. Added in a little bit of supplementation to speed it along, of course. And that was his first time actually doing anything like that. He'd be fun to me talking about that because he's open about all that.
Now, I'm trying to read. Were you Eric's coach for his first show?
So I coached Eric all the way up until I got him his pro card, and then he moved on to Ray.
Okay.
I forgot the guy's name.
Yeah, that's when he started moving to San Jose.
That's when he moved to San exactly.
Okay, now was Eric, because he's there's nothing, taking nothing away from Eric. Eric is just a genetic model.
Eric is great genetics, shape, and just the ability to grow.
Was he your learning curve, having somebody that's so receptive and having such a learning curve?
It's interesting. Yes and no. Yes, because he was really the first athlete that implementing new ideas or new things I was learning, and he responded well. But also, I would say that is a crutch on a coach's standpoint.
Now, I was getting ready to say that. So you've got Eric. Who else is in the house at that time?
Oh man. So
don't have to name too many, but just so you had a couple in the house.
At that point, I had a couple in the house. I was coaching still one of my best friends, Alex Montez, at the time as well. I'd started coaching him. A couple other people with lifestyle.
Now, having a phenom like Eric and everything's going easy, and I don't mean easy because Eric put in the work, but with a phenom, you just throw stuff at them and they go, all right, cool, coach, I can.
I did forget. I had a bikini athlete who I also turned pro at the same show as Eric. So she was also another phenom, but we'll get into that later.
So now Eric's easy. Is this where the curve came? Because you've got these other ones in the house and you're going, hey, this guy's responding to everything I'm doing to him. And now you have to look over and go, What's up with you?
Yeah. So there was a little bit of that, right? Yeah. And actually that's a great point is, so things I would do with Martinez, I would try because they're working so well.
Yes.
I would try it with other people.
Yes.
And some would respond, right? Because not everyone did.
Yes.
So it was like, okay, well, what do I need to do differently? And then basically, as for me, it was a lot of, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but they're kind of guinea pigs.
Yes.
I was just trying things out. Yes. I would be like, okay, why is that not working? Let me see what else I can try.
Well, when you first meet, let me cut you off, but
go for it.
When you first start coaching somebody, prepping somebody, it is a guinea pig because I don't know what your body likes.
Well, and that's true, I guess, with any new client, right? And you're very familiar with this. Like you have to learn that person's body.
Yes.
And even nowadays, I won't take anyone on for a prep unless I've worked with them before, or I make them do
like a mini cut.
Yeah, typically depending on where their body is, but I'll make them work with me for 2 months.
Okay.
Because it takes me about 4 weeks to really start to, in most cases, to really start to understand how your body's going to respond or not going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a little bit longer, but typically 4 weeks, and then I feel comfortable. Then we have 4 weeks of maybe it's a mini cut, maybe it's just a maintenance or
just to kind of see what your body enjoys or
try different foods. Yes. How much cardio do you need just to maintain the body fat level you're at, or how much you need to bring it down some. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a trial and error.
Keep going.
So with Martinez, so the positives was, for me at least, was that, man, I could throw a lot of different things at him and he would just respond. And, I would know when I'd make a mistake with him because it'd be obvious. Like, either he'd start gaining some weight or put on water or he'd cut way too fast. So we have to pull back. So it was fun because I got to understand like what working with somebody with great genetics was like. Mm-hmm. And it was also, for better or worse, it was a little bit of an ego boost too.
When you got, like I said, 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
He was 1, 2, 3 pro.
Yeah.
So
he turned pro in his second show.
That's a nice little feather in your cap.
Yeah. So going into contest prep, like we planned to do the Excalibur because in my mind, that was a big show. It still is a really good show, actually. So we wanted to do Excalibur. We wanted to put on stage next to a good group of people. But we're like, screw it. Let's do a warm-up show. So it was the Iron Games. I think it was like November 8th. And Excalibur was like a month later. And he ended up winning his class that show. And we weren't even trying to peak 100%, right? His glutes weren't in. Like, he was pretty lean, but his glutes weren't in. Anyway, that's an inside. We joke about that now, but so we won that, and then basically talking with Damon. Mm-hmm. Actually, I will give some credit to Damon. Damon definitely helped mentor me after that point. That was kind of me. With Damon, you had to prove yourself.
Yeah,
you were his. You grew up with Damon, but for me, I was a young guy, so I had to prove myself to Damon before he even gave me the time of day.
Yes,
and I respect that because I needed that.
I remember Pat did that to me my first show. Then he apologized. Yeah. He greatly apologized because I walked up and I had my meal plan and I said, "Hey Pat, what is this?" And he goes, "You're eating too much," and walked away. And I was like,
"Thanks."
What?
Yeah.
And I did my show and he apologized.
Yeah, but it's kind of the rite of passage, I guess, in a sense. And honestly, like might be this and that these days. That can get that whole another subject.
And what Pat's answer to me was, you know how many diets I write for people and they blow me off.
Yep.
So that's
at
this
true.
point in my life, and you've done it long enough now to where you're like,
yeah, one of my favorite lines for that is the Joker in Batman, where it's like, if you're good at something, never do it for free.
Yes. And
it's not about getting the money per se, but people don't respect free. There you go.
I used to do free ones all the time, and I'd write and spend my time writing these free ones, and I like see the person go, "How's it going?" "Oh, I didn't do it."
Yeah.
Do you know how much time it took me to write?
Right. Yeah, I put effort into this because I wanted to help you out. But anyway, so going back, we won that show. We ended up not doing Excalibur under some advice with Damon, and we just started shooting for the USAs, which, again, knowing what I know now, it's a very lofty goal, just to think you could jump right into it.
I mean,
it did work out. Yeah.
He was a phenom.
He was. And that's the thing, certain people can do that, and majority of people can't.
I mean, you look at the rarities. He's in rare air. That's it. Phil Heath is a 1, 2, 3.
Yep. God, there's a handful, but not very many.
I mean, it's like a one-hand count.
Yeah. Yep. I'm blanking on a couple of the other guys.
Well, and I went, but then I was thinking in the 90s and the 80s, they had to wait turns. They made them wait turns.
Yeah, there's that. And then the USAs were so stacked.
Yes.
And they handed out so little pro cards.
Yes.
So it was like a big thing to even be on the USA stage.
Yes.
So, and that's where times have changed. That was 20 years before we were on stage.
Yes.
2013 is when we went to the USAs. And I had a girl in bikini who won first in her class, and I had Eric Martinez. He won first in welterweights.
Mm-hmm.
So they both earned pro cards there, which, there's a little bit of politics on one of them, but that was the name of the game for bikini.
Now, we've got your first ones. Now let's kind of skip ahead because I want to come back to some things. Those diets compared to today's diets.
Oh man, and I would say the bigger difference is the training, but that'll be another topic for maybe later this episode. But yeah, those diets back then, I was definitely, it was a little more, I don't say cookie cutter. It was a little more, I try to fit everybody into one type of diet.
I tell people all the time, there's only so many different ways you can cut fish and broccoli.
I mean, if you look at my plans, the format is all cookie cutters, but the details within are individual.
Well, and that's why I said, don't call it, I tell people it's not cookie cutters, just when it comes time to contest prep.
Yeah. There's only so many things you can do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to probably lower carbs and I'm probably going to raise cardio. I mean, those are givens.
Oh, we're going to come back to the cardio thing.
Yeah.
So now...
So back then, to kind of give you an idea,
don't give it away for free.
Yes, right. But I was very heavy. I was all low fat, and then protein was always high, and then carbs were just manipulated. Basically, how it was a pretty standard diet.
Yes.
Nowadays, I'm a lot more balanced. Again, depending on the individual, but overall, I'm a lot more balanced. I do have my fats up higher until they have to come down. Carbs, again, depending on the individual, typically around the moderate. Again, some people need tons, some people need less.
It's nothing like having a person that I'm jealous of people that can eat carbs.
Yeah.
For cutting it. And you see people because they're the Eric Martinez's that are just like
the Ronnie stores just suck it up.
The Ronnie Coleman's of the world. I used to watch these videos where they were putting ketchup
barbecue sauce. And I'm like, Ronnie,
Dexter walk around drinking Cokes. Have you ever heard him talk about he didn't do cardio?
Yeah. That dude did, I think, 20 minutes, like 4 or 5 times a week tops. Like his top.
He left. Arnold. I remember one day because Arnold's Mr. Train hard every day.
Yep.
And he looked at Arnold and goes, I train 3 days a week. And Arnold was
he's like all machines too. It's later half.
Arnold was just sitting there holding the microphone like.
Yeah.
So
blew Arnold's mind.
Like I said, I don't want to give too much away for free.
I'll give it all away for free.
I know that's
I have no problem talking about
I want people to be pulled in and want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So now one of the things I notice coaching is the great lie when they check in. The great lie is you start with the standard questions. How's the diet? How's the cardio? How's the workout? How's the sleep?
Yep.
How do you handle the great lie?
Yeah. And well, I'll add one more is changing the lighting of your pictures to wherever you look best. So I'm up front at the beginning. I'm like, all right, I don't care where you take pictures at. I just want it to be the same every time, same time of day. I want you to wake up, try to use the restroom, and then take pictures. Right? I don't want you to go to cardio. I don't want you to get a pump. I want you to kind of look your worst.
Don't flex.
Yeah. I mean, you'll be dry typically because you're in the morning, but yeah, I want you to kind of look in your worst. Don't try to look good because I'd rather think you look worse and I'll push you a little harder and then see you in person, you look really good. Then vice versa, you look really good, so I don't make any changes, then you look sloppy when I see you in person.
Yes.
So on my check-in sheet, rather than just say, how is it? I actually make them rate it, which again, you can still lie. Scale 1 to 10, how well did you follow the diet?
Okay, right? I like that.
And then from there, if it's not a 10, give me just what happened or the explanations of why it wasn't a 10. So I make them give me a reason.
Okay.
And what I found, and I don't know if it's just because the people I've been taking on in the last few years have just been a lot more about it. People are pretty honest. They'll tell me, hey, I was a 7 this week. I missed 2 meals, or I fudged and I ate, cheat meal on Wednesday. I had sushi, whatever it was.
Yes.
So most people are pretty honest when I put it that way.
I like that one, the sliding scale. I like that. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's almost easier than just being like, how was it? Because that's too open to interpretation, right? When I give them a scale, people can know a number. It's like the pain scale, right?
Like, so when the great lie comes and they tell you it's a 10, across the board, and your next meal, you only have one more option. Okay, I'm either feeding you too much or I'm undertraining you.
Yep.
And you go to change that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
So I'll tell you what I do typically. Most of the time I'm manipulating so if it's a cut, I'm either going to increase cardio or I'm going to lower food in some way, right? I typically don't do both unless we are crunch time and something's not changing. Yep. Right. So it kind of alternates. So let's just say 1 week I'm going to increase cardio. And if it's 5 minutes, if you're doing 5 days a week, 35 minutes of cardio, I might bump that to 6 days a week, 35 minutes cardio. Or I might just bump those 5 days by 5 minutes or something to that extent. Normally it's not drastic. And then if it's food, I'll typically take out again about 200 calories, maybe 400 on the higher end, again, depending on
the
how much they need. And then so if you lie to me and tell me you're perfect, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, that means the plan's not working for you right now.
Bingo.
So I'm just going to have to increase output or decrease input.
Yes.
So that's, you kind of screw yourself. Because if you just said, I fudged all week, I'd be like, all right, just get back on your plan 100%. No changes are going to be made till you follow the plan.
Do you ever notice that when you go to the tinners, that you can look at their picture and go, you're not a tinner?
Oh yeah.
And 100%. Then the moment you start to pull and increase, the truth comes out. Yes. Just like that.
Yep. And then it is normally that next week where you're like, well, okay, so last week I actually did eat extra, but this week I only ate on plan, but it still wasn't what I gave them because I'd made the changes from the prior week. But it's like, okay, so like I knew that. But at this point, like I said, most of my clients, I don't have to deal with too much.
You've been doing it long enough.
But there was tons of people in the beginning.
Yes. Yes.
And I am a little nice. I don't necessarily call people out unless it's crunch time.
I generally tell people is I'm not the one that's standing up there in my underwear. Yeah. So if this is what you want to tell me, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I will say one big change that really helped me, and I was really hesitant to do it, but about 3 years ago, I told myself I will not put someone on stage just because they want to do a show on a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, everyone asked me, what show should I do? I'm like, listen, I think we're probably about 12 weeks out. So it looks like we're going to do this show. So we're not going to pay for that show though until 4 weeks out. Because if at 4 weeks out, we're not ready, we're going to push it back.
That's my favorite. Hey, coach, I want to do that show. No.
Yeah, you don't have enough time to do that show.
No, you're nowhere near.
Yep.
You got to at least give me 16 weeks because looking at your picture, because I have to do some other things before I can even do this thing.
Yeah, 100%.
So, what was that? Evolution of cardio.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you were like everybody else in the beginning. You probably over cardio.
100%.
Just get up there, cardio.
60 minutes, 6 days a week to start. Yeah.
So, what have you noticed in the change of cardio?
Yeah. And again, everything's individualized. But what I typically do is if I haven't been working with them, I'm like, all right, in their input form, essentially, how much cardio are you doing currently and what's your diet, right? And we'll focus on cardio. So let's just say they're doing 3 days a week, 20 minutes of cardio walking. I start them there because then I give them a diet and I just want to see what happens, right? I don't want to make too many changes up front because I don't know what they're really doing. So yeah, I just let them follow the plan. About 2 weeks. I don't even change it the first 2 weeks typically.
Yes.
Unless I see like an increase.
Now, are we talking athlete or are we talking GP? General population?
This is athlete. Okay. Well, it could be for either.
Okay.
Specifically,
we'll say GP. That's why I wanted to
so athlete. Okay. Yep. Athlete. Because basically, I just want to see what their body does with the diet that I give them, which is still roughly around the calories they've told me they're eating.
Okay.
Because again, I'm kind of confirming that they actually are tracking or know what they're doing or know what they're taking in, which a lot of people don't. So anyway, after that, if I see that once I find their body's maintenance, so are the calories and the cardio, they're just maintaining the weight for 2 weeks. I'm like, okay.
Now what's your time frame on that one?
That's where that's typically within the first 4 weeks.
Okay, that falls into that 16 weekers.
Yep, exactly. So that gives me about 12 weeks to really work with them.
Yes.
And again, I don't normally structure. I do month to month as far as payments, so I don't really which good and bad, but I don't really structure anything as a 16-week. That's why it's like we're going to shoot for this show in 16 weeks. But we might move that depending on how your body responds.
Okay. So now we've gone through the athletes and we can go down the rabbit hole. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much and on the PEDs and all that stuff because I want to stay out of that rabbit hole.
Sure.
I want to keep this one pretty PG-13. Let's go to general population.
Yeah.
So when you have a regular gym person, a regular person that walks in and they go, hey, I want to go to the gym. And you start writing their diet. How do you differentiate from your first general to your current general?
Yeah. So I think when I first started doing general population, I treated them too much like athletes.
So you're going to say
too much structure.
My first GP's got a bodybuilding diet.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, it's 5-6 meals a day. It's cardio is, it's treated as an athlete, which you come to realize like that's not what most people can follow.
Yes.
And even me right now, not doing any sort of shows or whatever, I couldn't follow a bodybuilding structure in my life currently, just due to other things I have going on. So how it's changed to now is that part of my questionnaire so basically to back up, I try to get as much information up front as possible. That way I can structure everything I always say, I want to structure this diet and this training and your cardio to your life and your schedule. So I tell them, hey, when do you go to work normally? So just run me through a normal day of your life as far as scheduling. So that way I know, okay, they're training at 6 a.m. in the morning till 7, and they got to, go to work from 8 to 5. And then
I'm gonna back up real quick to a general population. Now, when a general population person comes in, do you ask them what is their ideal physique? What is it? What is it that you actually want to look like?
Yeah. So I asked them what is their goal. Yeah, I asked them what's their 1 month goal and what's their 6 month goal.
Okay.
And again, it might be hard for some people to answer, but I like to know. I like to just see what they say.
Okay.
And normally people have like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds in a month, and I want to just be leaner and a little bigger.
Yeah.
That's pretty general.
Yes.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
And that's in my head. I'm like, all right, that's easy. I mean, you just working out, you just doing some cardio and dieting is going to get you all that.
Yes.
So it's like, it's kind of a cakewalk.
Yes.
You know, it's not like you're doing anything specific. Not like I want to look like Flex Lewis.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, let's reel the expectations in a little bit. You know, which I've had to do a handful of times, but and that's the other thing. I like to set expectations. Accurate expectations.
Yes. And that's one of the things I like to ask people is, like, what is your ideal?
Yeah.
And then from there, we can kind of go
work backwards from it.
Right. This is what we're doing.
Yep.
So in your general population diet, what do you think is the biggest difference between a bodybuilding diet that you're doing and a general population diet?
Yeah. So Gen Pop is typically, from what I've seen, 3, maybe 4 meals a day. So you take the meal, the amount of meals down, total calories are still probably around the same depending on the person, but you just make them into more digestible meals in the sense of like it's impractical for most people to eat 6 times a day every couple hours.
It's hard. That's right.
It's difficult.
When people come and I'm like, you know what, you're not going to be able to eat this.
Yep.
I generally tell people, you're not going to be able to eat this. Do this.
Yep. Also, I mean, and this is kind of actually the same with my athletes and my Gen Pop is I have a food substitution list because I don't want anyone to feel too can't get bored.
Yeah.
Right now with athletes, I will start to confine that and tell them
only
eat
rice
in
the beginning.
Or
there's only so many ways you can eat. You can cut fish and broccoli.
Yep. Exactly. So really, I mean, the food sources, because there's only so many good food sources, right? And they work for everybody. Almost everybody,
yes.
Other than some people who can't handle or tolerate certain foods, but for the most part, people can eat good quality steaks and red meats. People can eat chicken. People can eat fish,
yes,
eggs. Most people can eat all that, and it's good for them. So, most people that they get to choose in my mind. Now, I differentiate between like higher fat proteins and lean proteins.
Yes,
that in my plan I'll specify. But outside of that, you can kind of choose which food groups you put or what food types you put into those.
Yeah. That's one of the things I learned as I went forward. Is I learned they got to have a list.
Yeah,
because it's not.
That's the other thing. Gen Pop will not. So athletes sometimes you have to suck it up and do it.
I still eat. And people look at me. I come in with my 6 pounds of chicken, and they're like, "Where's that?" I go, "Oh, that's my week."
Yep.
I still eat like a bodybuilder because I've been doing that for my life. But
and it works for you, and
yes.
you don't mind it.
No.
Like at some point, food just becomes a functional thing.
It's just
you're not
fuel
eating for flavor.
No, that's when I go out.
Yeah, exactly.
But for day to day, it's just let me stick something in my mouth.
Oh yeah, it's not. I mean, and I have, it's not a brag, but I don't crave any crap food until nighttime. So I can eat I will be so clean from the time I wake up till like 8 o'clock at night. Now, when I splurge, it's 8 to 10 or 11, depending how late I stay.
When the brain turns off.
When the brain turns, then it's like, okay, those brownies look really good.
Let's go with that one. Okay, for now we're gonna go. I'm gonna leave the athletes alone. Now, how do you help out your general population? Because every GP I've ever helped, they're like, hey, Steve, what do I do when I get home? I mean, I'm like, that's just your brain turning off, and you're not thinking about it, and your dopamines are going, hey, bro, it sounds real good.
It tastes real good.
You bought those kids those Twinkies.
Yep.
So how do you help them out with that?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of it too is how I structure the food. So I like to put higher fat proteins as my last meal of the day to keep you a little more satiated. Yes. And I do try to, when possible, keep carbs in that last meal. Okay. Right. So if you had carbs, you had some fats with salt, and you're hydrated, your body is actually pretty satiated. Yes. Right. So I try to actually remove, if I have to drop carbs, I try to remove those from some of the earlier meals and actually keep it in at night, which, for the general population, it's not really gonna make a big difference if you have carbs at night.
Yes.
You're not consuming 200 grams of carbs.
Yes.
But having 30 grams of carbs, not a big deal.
Yes.
Also having a little bit of fruit. So this is actually a trick for bodybuilders too, getting some fructose to replenish the liver glycogen, which is really when your body turns that, fight or flight, like I need foods when your liver glycogen is low.
Yes.
So having some sort of fruit or anything with fructose helps to replenish liver glycogen.
I was going to say, because one of the things I like to give them some sort of healthy yogurt, cottage cheese.
I love good protein yogurt and having like an apple, right? Something with some fiber, some fructose. That'll curb a lot of, and then drink water. Just keep drinking water.
Now, gonna pick your brain a little bit so people understand why you like fibrous fruits versus other fruits.
Yeah, I mean, so it depends on the time of day, but fiber in general has so many health benefits. I mean, outside of, in my opinion, protein, it's probably one of the other micro, macronutrients that you really should be concerned with,
especially on a high protein diet.
Especially on a high protein diet, right? So as an athlete, especially, right, we need that bulk waste to be able to be moved out efficiently. But fiber is very satiating, and we can debate about the calorie content of fiber, but every gram of carb is 4 calories, right? So then there's soluble and insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber, there's an argument that it's 1 to 2 grams of maybe carbohydrates.
We'll keep it GP.
Yep.
Keep it GP.
Yep. So basically, you're probably not absorbing too many calories from the fiber content. So the higher the fiber content, it's kind of, I don't want to say free carbs, but carbs that you can consume and not get too many calories from.
Okay. And that's why you like the fibrous fruits.
Yep. Satiation.
Give me a handful of fibrous fruits that you like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with all the berries.
Okay.
I specifically love blueberries for health purposes and personally flavor. So apples, blueberries, fibrous fruits. Those are, I mean, like I said, berries in general. Berries and apples are my main fibrous fruits.
Yes.
Other fruits I will use, not necessarily in the last meal, but oranges, and I like bananas personally.
Yes.
So again, depending on where I want to put them, bananas are typically prior to training. Citrus is good if you need to.
Now, explain the benefits of a banana before training.
Yeah, so I mean, basically getting electrolytes, so high potassium levels, right? So I typically have, especially athletes, consume, if they're male, about half a teaspoon of Himalayan sea salt or good quality sea salt with a banana, and normally there's a little bit of protein, and it's kind of a full balanced meal, smaller meal to basically have all the fuel and the micronutrients you need.
So we're going salt and banana.
Salt and banana.
Okay, why the salt?
So sodium is very important for vasodilation, but actually pulling water into the cells.
Okay.
Right. And also in turn with all that, I mean, it will help load glycogen a little bit more efficiently as well.
Okay.
So better endurance, better, if you're more hydrated, the better endurance.
That's the words I was looking for.
If you never tried salt before the workout, your pumps are crazy.
Yes. So you guys heard that, right? Okay. So we're going to cut it a little short. We're going to come back again. We're going to pick Frap's brain. Thank you very much for tuning in to Muscle Matters. And do me a favor, if you're watching this, go on and leave a comment. If you have a question for Frap, we're going to pick his brain again pretty soon. So go on there, ask the question, Frap. Frap, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, easiest way is through my Instagram. So not to get complicated, but it's FRAP_VS. So FRAPverse_world. I should probably change that soon, but that's been what I'm running with for a while.
If it's not broken, why change it?
You know what? Yeah. It's always weird when you see people change. You're like, I'm trying to tag someone. I don't know what their new tag is. So I've just kept it the same.
Yes. Yes. So thank you very much for tuning in to Muscle Matters. We'll see you again soon.